Thank you, everyone, and welcome. I think a couple of folks came in while we were sitting, so good to have all of you, good to be with all of you. Um, and feel free, if you're feeling a little scrunched, you can move back a little bit. We're a little tight here, so that's good. Any questions, any comments or thoughts about your experience during meditation, about the instructions? Mhm. Okay, well, then. Um, I teach a class. I have a little sangha of my own, and I teach a class every week online. And a couple of well, let me say first though, I think I can project fairly well, but if my voice at any time you can't hear it, just please wave. Let me know. So a couple of weeks ago in my class, I gave a talk called Fire Hose Dharma. And I called it that because it feels like so much is coming at us these days. It's like this nonstop um, inundation of all the things we're seeing, all the kidnappings and all I can't even the words I can't, you know what I'm talking about. I don't even want to be explicit. And all the things we're seeing in our country, around the world, the stuff that's been going on for years. And then we have our own experiences. We have the things that are going on in our own lives that are happening. And I know that I've heard, and I think it's true, that our nervous system can't keep up with the onslaught of information that we're getting through all the media channels, through social media, everything. And we need to take a break. And it can be really overwhelming, especially since we also, our minds have a negativity bias. We're programmed to see the danger that's happening. And so sometimes that can build up and it can be really overwhelming. Rick Hanson, who you may know, he wrote Buddha's Brain among another other books. He's a Buddhist teacher. He's wonderful, and he's also a neuroscientist. And he said, our brains, this negativity bias evolved to help our ancestors spot danger and stay alive. But today it often makes us overestimate threats, miss opportunities, and cling to worries more than wins. We focus on the bad and barely recognize the good. We are out of balance. And he used this line that I like. We get stuck because our brain is like Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. And it doesn't serve us. It does to a certain extent, but there's an imbalance. And you know, this practice is all about the middle way. It's all about the middle way. It's not about too much of one thing or the other. Equanimity is a huge part of this practice, this capacity that we develop to be present for whatever shows up without favoring one thing over another. It's not turning away from anything. It's acknowledging the reality of the moment. It's acknowledging what's happening. It's acknowledging our experience, but it's not staying there. There's also the other stuff. And since this is November, and it's almost a cliche to talk about gratitude in November, but I'm gonna anyway, because I think it's really important. I believe gratitude is a heart practice. You know, we have the traditional four of metta, loving kindness, and goodwill, and compassion, and appreciative joy, and equanimity. There's also generosity. There's also, I believe, gratitude. It's really an important practice. And we know the myth of Thanksgiving. It wasn't all peaches and cream and pumpkin pie, but this thing that's been handed down about gratitude, I think, is really, really important. So I want to talk about that today and talk about the importance and talk about how we find it in our lives. And Ajahn Pasano, a monk, said, gratitude is turning away from negative states. We cultivate a perspective of seeing what is beneficial. What's beneficial? And as I always like to say, what gets in the way? What gets in the way of gratitude? What gets in the way of letting go? It gets in the way of releasing what's not wise and skillful? Why do we keep holding on to things? And so, and not in a judgy kind of way, but in a curious kind of way, an investigative, what is going on? Seeing our conditioning, our belief systems that maybe are not really true. It's really important to pause. And that's what we do when we practice. We learn to pause. We learn to watch the mind. We learn to watch our reactions. We learn to perhaps respond more wisely in return. So when we cultivate gratitude, we learn to recognize what's present rather than what's absent. Because we live in a society of lack. It's built, consumer society needs to make you believe that you don't have enough. One of my favorite questions is, how many of you think you should be further along than you are right now in your lives? Yeah, look at these hands going up here on Zoom. Yeah, it's because we think we're supposed to be somewhere else instead of saying, oh, I'm right here right now. Maybe I'd like to work on this, but there's nothing wrong. You know? And we live in a society of lack, and there's never enough. And this is what the Buddha talked about this. We always want something out there, and then we get what's out there. And then there's something else that we need. My latest thing, and I may have mentioned this before, is full body deodorant. Where did that come from? Why do we need that? Anyway, I'm sorry. I saw another commercial for that last night and I went, who made that up? They make up things. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. So, but sometimes we postpone gratitude because we think we have to get to a certain place for it to be okay. We think it's one thing or another. It's this false binary, this false duality. But it's like equanimity. There's the pleasant and the unpleasant. The 8 worldly winds, there's pleasure, there's pain, there's gain, there's loss, there's all the things. It's not one or the other. It's not a zero-sum game where if you have too much of this, you can't have that. And so to recognize that and to cultivate that, even if it's whatever this moment is, finding the gratitude in this moment, even for something that doesn't seem like you would be grateful for. Ajahn Chah, who is a wonderful, wonderful teacher in Thailand in the last century, which is so weird to say, he talked about monks who complained about being sick throughout the rains retreat. And the rains retreat is this 3-month retreat that is traditional in Theravadan Buddhism. It goes back to the time of the Buddha. When it was the rainy season, they didn't move around. They just stayed in one place. And he said the monks were complaining about being sick throughout the rains retreat and being unable to practice. Instead, he said they should be grateful for the opportunity to recognize sickness and death. Oh, yeah. And it's the reflection of the contemplation of being ill. It's one of the 5 remembrances. Death, one of the 5 remembrances. We're all going to die. We have in this culture a myth of immortality, that we can postpone it some way. But to turn towards and recognize it is really important. So to have a moment where you can reflect on it, wow, that's an opportunity that we can take. Gratitude can be and recognize what gets in the way of what we want. It's like we can be, oh, I want that. And it's getting in the way of me being grateful. Can I be grateful anyway? I was not always a grateful person. I was a person who was very dismissive of things like, you should be grateful you can breathe. And I'd be like, psh, Like, it's like, or should be grateful you can walk. And I'd be like, yeah, but this is what's wrong in my life. How can I be grateful if this is happening? And so to recognize that wrong view, that unwise view, that attachment to shoulds and have tos and if onlys is getting in the way of this connection to what is right here that may be really fulfilling and beautiful. It's not that we get rid of all the crap and then we'll get some gratitude, but it's a real shift in perspective. The story, my experience, my circumstances can be the exact same, but when I have this shift in perspective, it changes everything. We're free of the delusion that it's supposed to be that way. We're free of the attachment to a particular outcome. We're free from the aversion to what is happening right now. We have the capacity to be present and to be grateful for even little things. There's an ease that comes with that equanimity. There's a calmness in our heart and our mind. It's not a denial of reality. It's not saying that we just, oh, well, this is the way it is. We work to end suffering. We see the reality where suffering is and do what we can to alleviate that for ourselves and others. I love the bodhisattva idea of, we work for the freedom of all beings. Fannie Lou Hamer said, no one's free till everyone's free. And that's absolutely true. So it's not clearly what I can be grateful for. And our capacity for gratitude comes from being present, of being right where we are. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about being in yesterday. It's about right here. We open an awareness to this moment, to what's going on. We're grounded. We let go of the shoulds and the have tos, and we're willing to just be. We don't miss these little moments. They don't have to be grandiose. Often they're not. We're looking for the grandiosity, the lottery ticket that you have to buy anyway in the first place, but that winning lottery ticket, then my life will change. Or the job or the relationship or the big change. But you know what? Y'all had some rain out here, I think. I live in Burbank. We had a week of rain and it's green. I was going for a walk yesterday and the trees just were like, they were like electric and awake. And it was just like, wow, this is really nice. And driving out here this morning, all the snow on all the hills, like, wow, you know? And I offered that invitation to be grateful at the end of meditation, which I always do. I think it's really important to recognize, and a lot of times I'm grateful I get to sit with y'all. I'm grateful for this practice. I'm grateful for the preciousness of this life I have. I'm grateful for my little kitties, my fur babies. I often leave my husband off this list, but I'm grateful for him too. I am, truly. There's another quote from Ajahn Pasano. That's when a lot of gratitude comes, when we pay attention to others and to the efforts that they make. And when we put ourselves into a frame of mind that is willing to measure things, not just from our own views, perspectives, and feelings, but is able to extend our perception and way of viewing things, how others feel, how they think, how they perceive, then there can be room for a lot of gratitude. There's a certain network that draws us together. empathy arises as well. There can be a lot of gratitude that comes into the heart when we're able to really extend ourselves beyond our own feelings, our own biases, and our own perspectives. It's actually a very important thing to reflect on. That connection that we have also, that as Thich Nhat Hanh says, interbeing. We're not in this alone. I did a little spoken word piece the other night at this little theater in Hollywood, and I did a biography of my father, who didn't know very well. He died when I was 5, and I was I said, he doesn't have a biography, and I realized obviously he does. Because every one of us who's ever existed since we were all stardust has a biography. It's just that maybe we don't know them. And it's so easy, especially today, to make everyone else a cardboard cutout and to be isolated, but to recognize our shared humanity going back, going back, going back eons, centuries, thousands and thousands of years, and seeing others for who they are. And recognizing that, like I said earlier, we're all interconnected. We don't get free unless everyone's free. We are, again, Thich Nhat Hanh, we are this gratitude to be present with each other. We can get so much when we drop the shoulds and have tos. Pema Chodron says, we learn to rejoice even in the smallest blessings our life holds. It's easy to miss our own good fortune. Often happiness comes in ways we don't even notice, which is why it's so important to be present. It's so important to be present. Because we get locked into one thing and it's supposed to be this way, and I'm not supposed to feel that. And I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again because it was so profound for me. Years ago, gosh, it's like over 40 years ago, 30 years ago, I don't know, 30, 35 years ago, my brother passed away back in New Jersey, and I was back there for the funeral. In the morning, the funeral, sad, everything. And then in the evening, we were sitting out in the backyard of his house, my sister-in-law's house, and we were laughing and telling all the stories, that celebration of life. And I was laughing, and I had that moment of, is this okay? He just died. Are we allowed to laugh? And it's like, yeah, that's what's right here. This joy that we have in remembering and getting to share his memory. That's what's coming up. What's right here in this moment? Oh, joy. If we say no, 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 that's aversion. And that's what we want to let go of. We honor the feeling in the moment, seeing it for what it is. There may be grief one moment, there may be joy another moment. It's not supposed to be different from the way it is, and that we have to be present. And that's what our practice is not about getting good at meditation. Our practice is that we can walk through the world aware of what's happening, aware of what's coming up for us, aware of this moment. I'm going to talk about Rick Hanson again, because he talks in his book, Buddha's Brain, about letting in the good, about pausing and really taking time. Because I mentioned he's a neuroscientist, and he talks about rewiring our brain. And gratitude, not, taking a moment to experience, when you experience something pleasant, to really experience it. Like if you see a sunset or a sunrise or snow, or you see someone you haven't seen in a while and there's this feeling of joy, really take it in for 15, 20 seconds, which we don't do. We're like on to the next thing, but 15, 20 seconds is a time. So we let that in for 15, 20 seconds. We recognize again what gets in the way. And he said, make the positive aspects of your experience prominent and intense and in the foreground, while simultaneously letting the negative to the background, the stuff that's getting in the way, the judgment. Am I allowed to feel this? That's some old stories if you're asking yourself, am I allowed to feel this? Because it's there. Experience it. We don't let our emotions rule the roost or call the shots. We have an awareness that they're there. And then from our wise heart, we make choices, hopefully skillful choices to respond appropriately. That's equanimity. And he says, when you do this, when you elevate the positive experience, you're actually righting a neurological imbalance. You're righting that negativity bias that has us, that the scale is out of whack. So we're righting it to bring more of the positive in. Every time, he says, every time you take in the good, you build a little bit of neural structure. Do this a few times a day for months and even years, and you will gradually change your brain and how you feel and act in far-reaching ways. It's like the cultivation of the Brahma Viharas, the metta, the goodwill, the remembering. As you stand in, I talk about being in airports where I can get very judgy about people and their suitcases and their clothes and their shoes and all the things. And then I have to remember, oh, wait, I want you all to arrive safely. I want you all to have a good flight. I wish you all the best. That's a shift. Because it's that intentionality, this intention, the second factor, the Eightfold Path. Wise intention. It's renunciation, but it's also meeting the world with goodwill and compassion. It's this open-heartedness. And so we cultivate gratitude too. That's part of this practice. And it's not a spiritual bypass. It's not about, la, la, everything's good, la, la. It's a recognition of the reality of life. There is dukkha. There is dissatisfaction. There is the human condition. There are people causing a lot of harm. You can't deny that. But how do we show up in each moment? I'm all about how do we work to end harm as well. The precepts are not just don't cause harm, but work to end harm. Not just don't take what's not offered, but also cultivate generosity. It's not just one. It's a complementary practice. And so gratitude is one of those positive aspects. And I shared it wasn't my natural state because I came from a place of fear. It was actually fear of not being okay in all the different realms of my life. And how could I be grateful if I was unaware of that fear? I see that in hindsight through this practice, through this willingness to sit and be present and move in a different direction. It's like, my life is not really pleasant. How do I move? How many came to meditation because it was going really well? A lot of us came because we wanted it to be blissful. I hear that a lot in intro to meditation classes. I want to find some ease. I want to find some calm. I need something different. This works, but it's not because we're chasing bliss. It's because we're shifting how we live in the world. We're shifting our perspective. We see how we're conditioned and we're willing to let go of what doesn't serve. Renunciation. It's as simple as gratitude is as simple as if somebody says, gee, I really like your shoes. You don't say, oh, I got these on sale last week. You say, thank you. It's as simple as just saying thank you. Thank you. That's enough. Because we can say, oh, these old things? Not really. You can't really like this. And Ibram X. Kendi was a wonderful writer. He said, in a world where we are systematically taught to hate and envy, we should sit in gratitude for the people who have the courage to love themselves, to love us, to love our joy, to love the human right to love. If you are one of those loving people, then I'm sitting in gratitude for you. And I'm sitting in gratitude for each one of you because you are all here in practice, cultivating the capacity to develop a wise heart, a heart that's open and loving and compassionate and wise in how it moves through the world. Really important. But as I said earlier, it's not necessarily easy to do this because we've got a lot of roadblocks that we perhaps have not necessarily set up ourselves. They're often unconscious, but it's helpful to cultivate gratitude just as we cultivate metta and the other heart practices, dana. And I did some chaplaincy training a couple of years ago, and I think that's where this is from. And I'm going to invite us to do a little exercise. Excuse me. And there's some prompts for gratitude. As I said, I think this is from that class. So I'm going to invite you, sit, close your eyes if you like, and just reflect. A strength of mine for which I'm grateful. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be the thing. And if you can't think of something, that's okay also. Something money can't buy that I'm grateful for is something that comforts me that I'm grateful for is something that's funny for which I'm grateful is something in nature that I'm grateful for is a challenge I'm grateful for is something beautiful I'm grateful for is and so what I'd like you to do right now, for those of you in the room, turn to the person next to you and share one or two things that you may be grateful for that came up for you or something else. So please, and those on Zoom, I invite you to write in the chat what you're grateful for if you like. So go ahead, you can talk to each other. Name something you're grateful for. Share your gratitude. Thanks everyone for doing that. I appreciate it. So I invite you to practice gratitude regularly. As I said, I always do it at the end of my meditations when I guide meditations. I appreciate it. I know lots of folks do gratitude lists, but see how it works for you. It's a worthwhile. Do it while you brush your teeth. I'm a big fan of using toothbrushing time for practice in some way, shape, or form. So, well, Anybody like to share or have a question? Anybody want? Well, thank you, my friends, for being here. I'm constantly grateful that for this practice for community and sangha and y'all. I'm so grateful for Zoom. Seriously, I mean, these folk wouldn't be here. And we were on Zoom for how many years before we started coming back in person? I put on in the chat the info about the Big Bear Retreat. And then I can put in there again the info about the Dharma, which is a support of our community to keep it going, supports the teacher and ICD. I'm multitasking, which is not really great. Okay, done. And there's a volunteer sheet at the back of the room. For those of you in this room, part of Donna generosity is being of service. You remember when we had a lot of you remember the place we had? That was volunteer run, and this is not that, but this still needs volunteers. You don't even have to set up. My Zell Center does the setup and the tear down, but you open a box and take. Actually, it's a good practice. I would not be sitting in this chair. I said it last week. I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if I didn't start raising my hand back in the day and showing up at my teachers' community and started counting the money and doing the things. And then the next thing I know, here I am. So I'm being of service is an important part of building community. And then you get to see everybody, you get to know people. So who is going to sign up for taking a Sunday? Okay. You don't have, okay. Great. I see you. Thank you. Do I have two? Yay. So make sure you sign up. I'm not going to keep us going here, but make sure you sign up. And anybody online who wants to help out too, you can write to us. And because it's not just all in-person stuff, we can use support in many ways. So it's a community. We're building our community back up. So thanks for your help. And yeah, I think that's it. Retreat, Donna, volunteers. We got it? Yeah. All right. Home run. Yay. Is it spring training yet? I'm sorry, I'm a baseball fan. There used to be a website that said, "Is it spring training yet?" And you'd say, click on it, and it would say no. Okay, so let me read this closing piece that Ian wrote. It's called Going Forth. No, don't worry about it. There's a copy of this in the back if you want to grab one. Going forth into this world, so in need of light, may I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being and each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world so in need of light, may we together bring all the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful, and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. So thank you again, my friends, for being here.
Thank you.
And may all beings be free. Thanks, everyone.